بروکسل، پارلمان اروپا. کنفرانس درآستانه روز جهانی حقوق بشر با حضور مریم رجوی. سخنرانی‌های نمایندگان پارلمان اروپا از کشورها و گروه‌های مختلف سیاسی و پارلمانی. محکومیت موج اعدام‌ها و نقض حقوق بشر در ایران و مداخلات تروریستی فاشیسم مذهبی در منطقه.
Thank you, Chair, dear Gerard, but especially thank you, Madam Rajavi, for giving me this opportunity. In fact, it is a privilege. May I start by saying that some of our countries are lucky. I come from one of the lucky countries, but Iran is also lucky. Countries that have personalities that are a synonym of human rights respect. Whether it's you in Iran or Václav Havel in my country, I mean, these are people that help to make history. And I would share the dream of colleague Fotiga if one day, whether with me inside the parliament or without, we could see you in person or at least on TV monitors as Iranian president delivering a speech in the plenary of the European Parliament. I must say that it is very rare that that many members of the European Parliament would come together like that. I think the recognition of the issue that is debated today, but also the support that you personally and also all Iranian people have. Now, may I just say a few personal remarks. And I'll start by something that explicitly or implicitly has been mentioned. I mean, the European Union is really an extraordinary project, combined of countries which have a great record and footprint in democracy and also respect for human rights. But I need to say that I do agree with some of my colleagues that in recent years we were somewhat soft, if not selling out sometimes on our values, on our principles, and we were making compromises that we should not be making. And in fact, that conditionality that we have always had in bilateral agreements or in political dialogues somehow is not any longer as present and as strong as it should be. So I'm glad that this event hopefully is one of those that will reconfirm the voice and the demand for getting stronger in the framework of what the common foreign and security policy of the European Union and also its line on human rights is and especially should be in the future. Colleagues have referred to the fact that nothing really is changing in Iran. While we do hear from time to time statements which sort of try to cheat us or fool us and indicate that that is the case, that things are evolving for the better. Well, I see a few things which are a positive sign, and that is strong opposition leadership, resistance of the Iranian people. I mean, sometimes I can feel, the very modern nature that you can even get from the screens or from talking and meeting Iranian people. I mean, this is such a mismatch between the Iranian people and the current regime, the current fundamentalists that rule Iran. I can hardly see such a mismatch in other countries. So this is in fact a sort of a punch that the Iranian regime is throwing at the European Union at a time when there is a delegation. At that time, if 18 people are being on very doubtful charges executed, that is a punch. And we don't understand that. That is a punch that we are punching ourselves with as well. So in fact, we are co-responsible. And we are co-responsible also for the attitude that the Iranian regime has towards the European Union. And I think that we should stop fooling ourselves. What I'm really encouraged is that I feel a strong determination among us here. I'm also glad that in the presidency of the European Parliament, we do attach significant importance to human rights. Madam Rajavi, I wish you the very best. as well as your people that you truly represent, unlike the fundamentalists that are today in power. And I think that we will just give it another strive and another drive. I wish you the very best, and hopefully soon enough we'll have the opportunity to meet on human rights and on the situation in Iran, and in a broader sense than just in quotation marks, those that have been executed, including the minors that were not 18 at the time of the offense, but human rights as such, which are much broader and much deeper in their meaning. Thank you.
Mrs. President, it is really encouraging to see how much progress the resistance has been making with your continuous and tireless efforts. As we celebrate the International Human Rights Day, I would like to remember the victims of 1988 prison massacre in Iran. More than 30,000 political prisoners were hanged in the massacre which took place in many cities all over Iran during the summer of 1899. Many of the prisoners had already served their sentences, but were again questioned in summary trials and sentences to death. This was done according to fatwa of Ayatollah Khomeini, who had decided to erase a whole generation of intellectuals and opposition activists. Most of victims belonged to the main opposition, PMOI. A year after that massacre in 1989, the UN Special Envoy for Human Rights in Iran called on the Iranian authorities to investigate that crime, but that investigation was never undertaken. This year, the UN made a new call for an independent investigation into this crime. After nearly 3 decades, it is clear that the Iranian regime has never had any intention to investigate this crime. In fact, the same criminals who committed those crimes are now holding top position in the country. One of them is Alireza Avaye, who was appointed by Rouhani in August to serve in his cabinet as new justice minister. Avaye has been on the EU sanctions list since 2011 for grave human rights violation. He was the prosecutor in the south of Iran in 1899 and ordered the execution of many innocent political prisoners. After this year, reports by United Nations, it is totally unacceptable that the European Union continues with its silence over human rights and continues with business as usual with this regime. Therefore, given the fact that the regime has proven to be incapable of launching an inquiry into this crime after 29 years, it is time for the European Union and international community to refer the dossier of the crimes committed by this regime, especially by 1988 massacre of 30,000 political prisoners, to the UN Security Council, so that the regime officials and those responsible for this crime are brought to the International Criminal Tribunal. We must end the impunity of those who commit these crimes, which has continued in Iran until today. This must be priority of in EU future contacts with Iran. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Mrs. Rajavi, honorable guests, dear friends, I am honored to be here with you today as we mark the International Human Rights Day. As usual, I would like to focus on the situation of women in Iran. I would like to pay tribute to the thousands of Iranian women who have been deprived justice and freedom because they are women. The regime that has been ruling Iran for more than 38 years denies women their fundamental rights and advocates the suppression of women. Women of Iran have been degraded to second-class citizens. Let me say it clear and loud. This is just another form of apartheid. Allow me to salute all the brave women and girls in Iran who turn every opportunity into an act of defiance. Women must be free to choose what they believe in, what they want to wear, and how they want to live. They are entitled to the same social and economic status, the same opportunities in education, employment, and entrepreneurship as men. Women deserve freedom, and they are determined to fight for it. Mrs. Rajavi, we know you, and we would like, and we are obliged to help you. I am very pleased we know each other, and I try to do my best. I would like to send a message to all women in Iran. Keep on fighting. We know about you, we are with you, and we will support you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, dear Mrs. Rajavi, dear friends of Iran. As we are celebrating the International Human Rights Day, the one country that we all need to focus on is Iran. The UN Special Rapporteur on Iran, Mrs. Asma Jahangir, very recently said that last year, at least 4 juvenile offenders were executed and 86 more are known to be on death row, although the actual figure may be higher. She was also concerned about numerous reports of the use of physical and mental torture, amputation, blinding, flogging, and the continued use of prolonged solitary confinement and denial of access to proper and necessary medical treatment of detainees. There are many facts to prove such as statements, and that is why the EU policy towards Iran has been an embarrassing mistake. We say EU should be loud and clear in telling the Iranian authorities that enough is enough. They can no longer distract the world's attention from their crimes against their own people. Time has come for their accountability, and this should and must be the EU's current policy towards the barbaric conduct of the mullahs regime. All our dealings with Iran must be conditioned upon a halt on executions and clear and tangible improvement on human rights situation. We must stress that in all talks, our full priority is human rights of the Iranian people. Let us hope that with the leadership of Mrs. Rajavi, you will achieve freedom and democracy in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that Human Rights Day, it is not only about the crimes being committed by despotic rulers, but also reminds us of the forgotten ones buried throughout the decades. We have heard already about such kind of crime today, but I'd like to remind all of us that one such unpunished crime against humanity is the massacre of more than 30,000 political prisoners in Iran in the summer of 1988. I do believe we need the proper investigation of this crime, and such investigation needs to be carried by international community and not by the Iranian regime, because you cannot ask thieves to investigate their own theft. Having said all this, one question remains to be unanswered, and that is why, despite the attention given by this matter to the UN and prominent human rights organizations, The European Union has not even said a word about that. This is strange, and it is also not acceptable too. If Madame Mogherini does not want to annoy Iranian government by mentioning human rights violation in Iran, and especially this acknowledged crime against humanity, I must say that as representatives of the European people, we do not approve this attitude because it is breaching our principles in Europe. Current Iran became the record holder for execution in the world per capita. Unfortunately, current Iran is a dictatorship. There is no free election. No opposition candidates are allowed. So we should be on the side of the people of Iran who are suffering under this theocracy. We therefore expect the European Union to issue a statement in condemning the 1988 massacre in Iran and supporting UN's call on independent investigation into this crime. Let me end by reaffirming my full support for the Iranian resistance and particularly personally for brave Madame Rajavi in your hard struggle for freedom and democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Madam President Rajavi, thank you for your coming, and thank you so much for your struggle for a free Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you some of my concerns related to the human rights situation in Iran. Despite 4 years in office, President Rouhani has not delivered on his campaign promise of greater respect of civil rights, political rights, and human rights. No, executions continue in Iran at a very high rate. The authorities continue to arrest and charge journalists, bloggers, and online media activists for exercising their rights of freedom of speech and expression. Hundreds of websites, including social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter, remained blocked in Iran. The intelligence and security service heavily monitor citizens' activities on social media. Authorities continue to target independent unionists and restrict freedom of assembly and association. Iranian women face discrimination in personal status matters related to marriage, divorce, and child custody. Married women may not obtain a passport or travel outside the country without a written permission of their husbands. Child marriage continues as a law allows girls to marry at 13 and boys at age of 15 years, as well as at younger ages if authorized by a judge. Members of religious minorities, Sufis, Christians, and Muslims, face discrimination in law and in practice, including education and employment. Members of minorities who spoke out against violations of their political, cultural, and linguistic rights faced arrest, torture, and other ill treatment, unfair trials, imprisonment, and in some cases, death penalty. The freedom of religion is an important right which should be respected because religion is a private choice and has to stay private. Every person should have the right to exercise his or her religion as long as this does not restrict or harm the right of another person. But the political Islam in Iran and the Islamic penal code, which continue to provide stoning as a method of execution, is a dangerous and misleading interpretation of religion, as the religion has turned into a political instrument. It is time for Iran to become a modern and civilized country. It is time to change. The power of the mullahs must end, and the criminal Iranian regime must fast out of power. To reach these targets, the EU member states and the EU institutions have to change their views concerning the ruling regime in Tehran. I was happy to hear my colleagues, Ms. McIntyre and Mr. Faria, criticizing the EU-Iranian delegation. It is time that economic interests don't rule the world any longer. We should not forget the values we stand for. Let it bring me on a point. We should not make deals and business with criminals. This I mean when I look to Iran and to the EU. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few words to welcome Ms. Rajavi to the European Parliament, to this House, where there is concern about human rights everywhere within the European Union, but also outside the European Union. I've been in touch with the Iranian opposition now for many years, even before becoming member of the European Parliament. I even had the pleasure to visit Ms. Rajavi many years ago in her residence. So it's a pleasure for me to meet you again, this time in the European Parliament. I do think that Iranians need a free Iran, as any human being needs to live in dignity and liberty and freedom. But at the same time, I do think that also the world needs a free Iran, Iran being such an important country for the region, but also for the rest of the world. The world also needs a free Iran, and that's why many of us here in the European Parliament support a change, a fundamental change in your country. We believe that minorities shall be respected in Iran, that basic fundamental freedoms shall be respected, and the best way to respect human dignity is to live together in freedom, in liberty, and in democracy. So please keep counting on us in your struggle for a free Iran. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Vice President, who started the meeting, said that we feel this is our second family, and it's true. Many of us have been members of this second family for years, but it's so refreshing and encouraging to have new colleagues who have joined it from all different political groups, because it's an enterprise, it's an initiative in the name of humanity and solidarity, that every nation in the world deserves democracy and freedom and equality and peace, and also security for its citizens. To be here and meet with you, Madam Rajavi, and your colleagues is really a miracle, considering what you have endured, how difficult has been your fight. It was exceptional endurance, persistence, commitment, and dedication to the cause of freedom and democracy that you have done. And your only sin was disclosing the secret military nuclear program of Iranian dictators. This is your merit. You started this international trouble. But I was privileged 8 years ago, I think, to visit Camp Ashraf together with Vidal Quadras, that time Vice President of the Parliament. We were lucky to visit Camp Ashraf before American forces left. Now they are safely, most of them are safely in Albania. We were lucky with my wife former member of the Estonian parliament who is here, to visit Camp Ashraf veterans last fall in Tirana. But what is continuing is export of Iranian terrorism throughout the Middle East. It's expanding, not diminishing. And it's clear that present regime of Iran has been part of the problem, not solution. It is original part of the problem of terrorism and instability in the Middle East. Second, missile program is continuing. But the ballistic missile program has only one purpose: to carry nuclear warheads. So it's a clear indication that the basic goals of Iranian regime are being followed. And as Iran is now more free to buy technology, they are sending it to North Korea. The North Korean and Iranian ballistic missiles are like twins because they are constructed in cooperation between two evils. And the most devastating result, which is still there, is the situation of human rights. Hanging people by thousands, by hundreds, by dozens. So the question is, how long do not ordinary people, but very well-informed heads of state continue to believe in moderate dictators and reformed butchers? How long is it going to continue? We can't look aside, avoiding to take co-responsibility what is happening. The answer is secular Iran, gender equality, abolition of death penalty, and giving up nuclear program. Because this appeasement and accommodation has been an obstacle for Iranian people to stand up and change the regime. What we need is change of regime. So I think it's high time to openly take the side of Iranian people. Thank you very much.